Good morning. My name is Kirby Fowler. I'm president of the Downtown Partnership. I want to welcome you to the State of Downtown breakfast. We'll be going over the results of our report from last year, 2017, and we'll also be looking ahead. We'll also be recognizing and celebrating some of our main projects from last year. We've got a lot to accomplish today. We also have some special announcements. You might have seen something really cool and interesting looking in the lobby. We're going to be talking about that later. It's the subject of an important announcement we have today. I do want you to all recognize that springtime is not coming. Just accept it. Just accept it. I had a winter jacket on today. It made me very upset. I'd like to recognize our sponsors. It's always important to have sponsors. Our presenting sponsor, year after year, Gallagher, Avelius & Jones. Thank you very much. The law firm is very critical to many projects in the city, like Cross Street Market, and also Mercy Hospital and many other important projects. Our leadership sponsors, COPT, Ike Smart City. Community sponsors, Baltimore Development Corporation, First National Bank, MAC, I remember this year, Horseshoe Casino, PMS Parking, 225 North Calvert, Marks Thomas Mosley Architects. Thank you very much. Please recognize our sponsors. I'd also like to acknowledge and thank our public officials for coming. We, of course, have our mayor, Mayor Catherine Pugh, who'll be speaking in a moment, but let's stand up and thank her for coming right now. Let her stand up. You don't have to stand. Although he's not an elected official, we have Commissioner Darrell D'Souza. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming, and good luck. We have Reverend Jerome Stevens representing Senator Ben Cardin. Where are you? Thank you very much. Thank you. And signed up, we had Councilman Eric Costello. I don't know if he's here, but he is tireless in advocating for downtown Baltimore. Is he here? But thank you. There he is. He's running in. Thank you, Eric. And I believe Councilman John Bullock as well. And oftentimes we have a representative from the City Council President's office, Jack Young's office, and we always appreciate all their help over the years. So let's get right to the program. I'd like to introduce Mayor Catherine Pugh. Before she gets up here, I want to thank her, first of all, for turning her attention from day one and increasing her attention to three critical areas in the city: public safety, workforce development, and promoting the assets of our city. Well, I don't want to steal your thunder, but since January, compared this section of the year to date, since January, we've had far better numbers in terms of crime, whether it be downtown or the city, compared to last year. So already things are starting to turn a corner, and it's very important that it does that. I greatly appreciate our close working relationship with the mayor. I look forward to working with her to drive more investment to downtown for our capital needs. We need foot patrol, and thank you, Commissioner D'Souza, for finding more foot patrol officers for us. And also marketing and promoting the city. I look forward to doing all those things with her. But I also want to thank you and your team. I know we saw Rudy Chow, and we've got other people from your team here today. From top down, they are responsive, and that's thanks to you, Mayor Pugh. On our board, we have Jim Smith, Colin Tarber, Bill Cole, Tom Stoser, and Al Hutchinson. But from the top, they have gotten the orders, and they are very responsive and helpful. So thank you very much for coming today, Mayor Catherine Pugh, and please welcome her to the stage.
Good morning. Boy, y'all, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Too much food? No. Okay. First, let me just say, Kirby, I want to say thank you. Thank you for all the work that you do on behalf of the downtown community, but also thank you for being such a great resident of Baltimore. Thank you also for sitting on a new commission that I've formed to look at how do we continue to reduce property taxes in our city, and how do we create structures around our city where investment has not been made, but we can lure people back into Baltimore. So thank you for accepting that appointment. And also let me say to Dr. Jay Perman, thank you so much for your commitment on behalf of the University of Maryland, but also to the Downtown Partnership. I've gotten opportunities to take walking tours, to look at how we continue to expand and grow the downtown area and pay particular attention to what's going on over in your part of the downtown area. So thank you for all the work that you do, and also as the chair of the Downtown Partnership. Marcus Stevens, I can't wait to see your presentation. I just had a conversation with Marcus because one of the things that I am looking to do, one, is increase investment in Baltimore. And I said this in my State of the City address, that I'm looking to create a $200 million investment fund every year over the next 5 years, $1 billion, to invest in neighborhoods that have been underinvested in for decades. Now, it's not as difficult as some of you may think, because one of the things that I intend to do with the help of the City Council and our surrounding jurisdictions is to seed the first $50 million on behalf of the city, because we need to get this going. Because if you look around some of our other neighborhoods, we need to make that investment a reality. And the other thing that we're looking at is making sure that we grow the population of the city. I know you all have heard those figures that we've lost population in the city, but there are other factors that play into that when we talk about the Section 8 vouchers that have been given to people to move out of the city. But the reality is, and I think you'll hear this from Kirby, is that people are moving to Baltimore. And Forbes magazine said the millennials think Baltimore is one of the top 10 coolest cities in America. Let's give those millennials a big round of applause. I also want to thank our Councilman Costello, because not only does he oversee the budget, but he is one of the most tenacious city council persons that we have, understands the budget, understands what we need to do to grow our city, and more importantly, how important this downtown community is to our city. And while it may not occupy the major portion of the city, many of our jobs come from right here in downtown Baltimore. And that is why we thought it was so important to focus on how we make our city more safe in the downtown community. So let me just say to you all, we started reducing violence in Baltimore in November. And for those of you who don't know, we are one of 32 cities around the world that are Bloomberg cities. And what does that mean? We have a Bloomberg team that focuses on specific issues. I'm a part of a Harvard Bloomberg class of 32 mayors from around the world, and we're always encouraged to think out of the box, which is something I always do anyway. So it's like me on steroids. And so one day I was sitting in class, I said to the class, I said, I wonder what it would be like, we were talking about solving city problems. I said, I wonder what it would be like to put all of your agencies in one room with your, because all of us are talking about reducing violence in our cities, and put your command staff together. What would that look like? And what kind of results could we see? And so let me just tell you, we started this back in November. October was when we first came together, am I right, Commissioner? And at that time, Darryl D'Souza, now our police commissioner, was our deputy commissioner. And what I really enjoyed was, A, going over to the police department every day as we began to look at putting this initiative together, and then seeing the interaction with the command staff. And he will tell you that when we first started, the response team between the city and the command staff was 7 to 14 days. Today, 1.5 to 2 days. And that means cleaning alleys, putting up lights, making sure that homes are being repaired, boarded up houses, green spaces being cleaned up. It makes a difference in the crime fight. And what I also need you all to know is when I first became mayor, and I think I shared this with you all last year, that we had frozen police positions in the city since 2015. And so we were under-policed in the city. And I know you hear the numbers about how a city of our size, we are one of the largest police departments in the country. But we have some major issues, and issues that we must deal with, because people choose cities for 2 reasons initially: safety, public safety, and schools. And for those of you who don't know, we received $1 billion. Just as I was leaving the Senate, we were able to bring back $1 billion to build 28 new schools in Baltimore. That's more than all the jurisdictions put together in the state of Maryland. So that deserves a round of applause. Go ahead, you all. But expanding our police force, or unfreezing, because we really didn't expand it, we unfroze the police positions. And so what you'll see, and you're seeing more of, is police officers walking the beat, moving throughout our communities, not just in the downtown community, but throughout the city. but a well-thought-out police department. And as I said, I know that I made the right choice in Darrell D'Souza as the commissioner for Baltimore City, because he not only gets it, he understands data. You can clap. Right. He understands data, and he understands the importance of downtown and communities and how we use data to drive down violence. So let me just let you all know what we've been able to do. So in November, we started reducing violence in the city. When we put those initiatives together, we call it the Violence Reduction Initiative. Every morning at 8 a.m. over in the police department on the 7th floor, there's a meeting that takes place. All of the commanders and our agencies together. And not only are we talking about the things that are taking place, but we're also looking ahead at what do we do to make sure that the things that occurred the year before don't occur in this year. So November, we experienced a reduction in violence. And then December, we experienced a reduction in violence. And I tell people 1 month, not enough to talk about. 2 months, not enough to talk about. January, February, March, violence is down in Baltimore. And in the downtown area by 34%, overall violence reduction in Baltimore's downtown area. And throughout the city, a 20% reduction in violence in all categories. And so we're really excited about where we're going in terms of the technology that we're placing in our police department, the increased foot patrol throughout our downtown and our neighborhood areas. But we've also realized that creating jobs and creating opportunities is really what gets at the heart of driving violence in any part of our city. So that's one of the reasons I'm so grateful to what we see and are experiencing with our downtown, because we're luring businesses back to Baltimore, and businesses are growing in our city. I was so grateful to Goldman Sachs for their $10 million investment to create 10,000 businesses in our city, undergird and support. We are gaining all kinds of support. I'm grateful every time I think about Michael Bloomberg, who I had a conversation with just last Monday about what else can we do to help you help Baltimore, because this is a city that is on the rise. It's a city that has great opportunities. It's a city that has so many viable options for people to not only entertain themselves, but to go to restaurants, housing structures that are coming up all around our downtown area and in our other neighborhoods. We are going to be a great city, but it is because of your commitment to making sure that we continue to expand and grow businesses in our city. I'm really grateful to the vision that you all have for the downtown community. And let me just say, this part of our community provides 27% of the jobs for the entire city of Baltimore. 30% of the economic output comes from what we're doing in the downtown area. And 24% of Baltimore's income tax is generated from the businesses in the downtown area. So if nobody has said to you all today that you're doing a great job, turn to somebody and tell them, you're doing a great job. And let me conclude by saying this. You are doing a great job. And so what I need you all to continue to do is to think about the greatness of Baltimore. Think about all the good things that are happening in our city. One of the best aquariums in the world, a great downtown inner harbor. The expansion on the waterfront is just continuing to thrive. Fort Avenue infused now into our downtown community. And I can't wait to see all that's going to happen with our new campus, the Under Armour Sagamore development, what that is going to eventually look like. If you've not been over in that part of the city, please travel, because it is beautiful. Baltimore, it is really about how we lift the least, how we become more inclusive, how we become more diverse, how we continue to create jobs and opportunities for people who live in our city, and how businesses continue to flourish and grow, and how those millenniums continue to lead us in the right direction. Baltimore is a great city. We're one of the coolest cities in America. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pugh. I want to point out something really important happened, I think, about 2 weeks ago. Outside Lexington Market, not in the market itself, but outside Lexington Market, there were some merchants who were engaged in actually distributing drugs. And for the first time, and I've seen in a very long time, the mayor's office and the police department, they shut down one of the establishments that was one of the worst providers of drugs in the area. And I know that the issue of pharmaceutical drugs being dealt in our Lexington Market can be solved by human intervention. And I think this mayor and this commissioner might be the first in decades to solve it. So thank you for taking that step forward over there. Really appreciate it. Now, for everyone standing over there, I don't want you to get upset. You can walk through those doors and get over to a few seats over here if you'd like. You can just go right around. My next privilege is to introduce our board chair. Dr. Jay Perman is not only the president of the University of Maryland, Baltimore, but he is the board chair of the Downtown Partnership for the past 5 years, and he's going to go for more, right? We hope so. At least one more. But he's worked so hard for downtown. He's got such a busy job on the side, but he is committed, believe it or not, on the side. But the Downtown Partnership job matters a lot to him, and we are so grateful for all of his hard work and effort. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Perman to the podium. Thank you.
Kirby, you know how to put a guy on the spot. Good morning, everybody. I join Kirby in thanking all of you for celebrating with us today, because that's what this is. And I add special thanks to Madam Mayor, hardest working person I've seen in ages, and the many elected officials who took time to be here this morning. Now, for more than 20 years, the Downtown Partnership has had a clear vision of what success looks like. A dynamic 24-hour district with a strong economy, growing workforce, thriving retail presence, a large, diverse population. And as you know, to track our progress toward this vision, we issue our annual State of Downtown report, which is in front of you. For some background, our data collection area is a 1-mile radius with the epicenter at Pratt and Light Street. The area includes parts of many downtown neighborhoods. They include Charles Center, Preston Gardens, the Bromo Arts District, our University of Maryland, Baltimore campus, Jonestown, Federal Hill, Harbor East, Harbor Point, Sharp Leadenhall, and Pigtown. The area is barely 4% of Baltimore's total geography, but it contains 29% of all the city's businesses, and I'm going to up the mayor a little bit, 35% of its jobs. It's also one of the top performing downtown centers in the country. Of the 25 largest metro areas, downtown Baltimore ranks 11th for population density with over 42,000 residents, 14th for average household income, which is over 91,000, 13th for the number of households earning more than $75,000 a year, and with 119,000 plus jobs, we rank 14th for employment density. As part of this report, we asked our downtown employers why they chose to locate here, and in the case of Morgan Stanley, why they dramatically expanded here. Resoundingly, the answer was that businesses are here because this is where the best and brightest employees want to be. No other office district in this region has the concentration of restaurants, galleries, retailers, music venues, grad schools, transportation options that downtown Baltimore has. And certainly we enjoy easy access to sports venues. Look, I can say this. Where else can you walk from your office to Camden Yards in time for the first pitch? We're also without peer when it comes to great housing options. Downtown high-rises with corporate names like Transamerica and M&T now share the sky with rooftop pools, tenant lounges, restaurants. In fact, so many apartments have opened recently, yes, that people have been asking, are we building too many? Now admit it, many of you have asked yourself that question. So we looked into it. This past year, we released our housing demand study, something we do every 5 years. The report looks exhaustively at the housing that's been delivered, the kind of units, the resident profiles. I'll cut to the chase. The data finds that we should be able to accommodate nearly 7,000 new housing units over the next 5 years. And that's confirmed by the rate at which new units are being absorbed. Our housing occupancy rate rose slightly to 93%, up 2 points over 2016. 500 Park Avenue, which opened 9 months ago, just hit 96% occupancy. 10 Light, as you all know, an enormous building that doesn't have parking, is nearly 100% occupied. We expect that our new residents will continue to be young. The mayor talked about millennials. Almost 70% of our potential residents are millennials, while empty nesters represent 20% of the demand. Now, turning to the office market, there's more good news. Our occupancy rate improved more than 1 point, from 84% in 2016 to just over 85% this past year. This improvement is due to some large lease transactions. Morgan Stanley led the way with a 300,000 square foot new lease at 100 South Charles. Also at the top of the list are names like M&T, Johns Hopkins, Price Waterhouse Coopers, Merrill Lynch. You can find all the notable leasing activity on page 9 of the report. In terms of employment, we saw yet again a change in methodology by the National Data Center that we use to report. That makes it very difficult to compare apples to apples year over year. You know that I'm getting to something. So with this new methodology, yes, we saw a reduction, negligible, from about 122,000 jobs in 2016 to 119,000 this past year. I do need to tell you that 18 of the nation's other top 25 downtown areas also saw an employment drop with this new methodology. To be honest, this national trend doesn't seem accurate to us. Nevertheless, any job loss is within the margin of error, so employment in downtown Baltimore, I think we can say, is fairly described as holding steady. And over the long term, we want to see it grow. We're very bullish on downtown's job market. We're also optimistic about the hotel sector, which enjoyed stable to strong occupancy rates, room rates, revenue per room, compared with hotels across the nation. Visitation and overnight hotel stays were both up last year over 2016, which is an incredibly important metric for the city's economy. Last but not least is the retail sector, which enjoyed increased occupancy and a higher total sales figure in 2017. As you'll see in the report, a lot of retail leasing activity came from restaurants. Now, I know there's been some understandable hand-wringing about restaurant closures in the city. But what's often left out of the conversation is the number of restaurants that are also opening. I think we all appreciate that the restaurant industry is a tough business. Nationally, Most restaurants close within a year of opening. Of those that make it past the first 5 years, or rather the first year, 70% will be out of business in under 5 years. There are a lot more food options out there, which is part of the picture. But I'll tell you, both the summer and winter restaurant week numbers were incredibly strong in terms of the number of covers and total sales. And of course, we know that Baltimore isn't immune to national retail trends as stores continue to adjust to a growing number of online competitors. In fact, last year, the U.S. experienced one of the worst closure years on record. More stores closed in 2017 than did in 2008, the beginning of the Great Recession. Retail's changing, and so must we. And let's be honest, when we're talking about attracting new restaurants or new companies, we also need to recognize that, yes, Baltimore's reputation has taken some hits over the past few years. And that means we all have to work harder to tell the right story. We need to be smarter about it in order to attract jobs, investments, and residents. And the data in your State of Downtown report shows that we have a lot to talk about. We have a lot to work with. A strong base of jobs, a growing residential population, good tourist visitation, and hundreds of millions of dollars in investment. As a city, we must maximize our efforts to market ourselves. And that's something to which Madam Mayor and her team are absolutely committed. That's why we created our Hey Baltimore podcast and our Dine Baltimore program. It's why we help colleges and major corporations with their recruitment efforts. It's why the partnership regularly works with Visit Baltimore, Live Baltimore, and so many other organizations to amplify positive messages. You can help by following the Downtown Partnership on Twitter at Downtown Balt. That's where we deliver up-to-the-minute news about downtown and its economy. It's information you can use, and even more importantly, please share. You can also download all the data I just covered from the State of Downtown report, the Housing Demand Study, and the Development Report. All of it is in godowntownbaltimore.com. I want to thank all of you for your support. The strength and vitality we're celebrating today are a testament to your investment in downtown, to your partnership, and to your vision of what we can be. As always, we'll grow bigger and better together. Now, before I ask Kirby to come back up here to the podium, I need to thank him for his incredible leadership, his obvious passion for Baltimore, and his drive to make this city the nation's very best. Now, I also thought you might all like to know that today is Kirby's birthday. You may wonder why I brought this. So, in lieu of champagne, let's all raise our coffee cups, water glasses to our fearless leader. Happy birthday, Kirby. Please. Thank you.
It's tough turning 30. It really is. And Dr. Perman, I do want to apologize when I made that comment about your side job. I recognize you're going to get in trouble with your students and your professors, so I apologize for that. I'm going to review quickly just where we've come since 2004. It is my birthday, as you heard, so I am reflecting back on at least my own personal journey. I joined the Downtown Partnership in 2004, and so much work was done before me, as you all know, with Lori Schwartz and Michelle Welly. But I decided just to look back from 2004 to the present and look at all the development that happened, because it's just, we could easily put a list, which we will in a moment, of all the projects that have happened over those past 14 years, but you need to see the building. So we're going to review that quickly. We're going to talk about safety just a little bit more, and then we're going to go through some achievements of the year, and then turn it over to Marcus Stevens, who was our keynote speaker, and I'll give him a brilliant introduction a little later. So, first of all, I want to talk about how far we've come. When we talk about downtown Baltimore, we have a broad definition, which we've had for years. It covers everything from Locust Point up to Penn Station to Poppleton to Canton and beyond. But you may know that our surcharge that we collect every year that generates $8 to $9 million comes from that area on the map. It's called the Downtown Management Authority area. And it's a small area of the city. It's about 1% of the city's landmass. But as you may remember, if you ever come to these events, I always point out it's the fastest growing neighborhood in the entire city, and also one of the most integrated, which was recognized by the Baltimore Sun last year in an editorial. I think that deserves applause. It's not just a growing city, a growing downtown, it's a diverse downtown as well. But as I mentioned, we're standing on the shoulders of others. So looking back from 2004, we compiled this list. There were 67 major projects. I'm not talking about small little restaurants opening up here and there, even though they are very important. These are gigantic structures. We have to show you the pictures of these things. And you might think, oh my God, 67 pictures, I'll never get to work today. It's going to go fast. So let's start with, so those are the projects. We just start with the standard. There's 67 projects in 14 years, 5 major projects per year in basically a 7-by-7 block area that we have in downtown Baltimore. Even though I understand and do support TIFs, they're very important for many, many projects, I want the mayor to know in this area we've had 0 TIFs to accomplish all this work. It's been thanks to the private sector. It's thanks to the city and state all combining resources. But these are gigantic, impressive projects. And I challenge anyone to point to any other part of the city or state where they've seen such a transformation having been undergone. It's almost happened too quietly. These things sort of sneak up on you because many of them are renovations in buildings themselves. But they are not new construction necessarily, although we're seeing new cranes with, of course, One Light and other projects like 414 Light Street. But these are projects that sort of sneak up on you. And you don't realize until you drive past a building and you see somebody, a resident, walking out of the building with their dog. And maybe you won't even realize it then. So that's why we decided to put all these up there for people to understand the amount of transformational development that have repositioned downtown. Now, it's a shame, and I want to tap my hat to Dr. Perman, it's a shame that the Downtown Management Authority doesn't cover the biopark, because we would have a whole bunch more projects to show as well. But maybe we'll extend. But it is extraordinary what you've all done, what we've done to pull these projects off. And people do not recognize that again because it's happened sort of quietly. And that's why we decided to show this today. And believe it or not, we're almost done with the 67 slides. But this area can slip. It can slip despite all this investment. We have $150 million that we generate in tax dollars every single year for the city and for downtown. But that money goes to not just downtown, but the entire city. Our surcharge, which is our private contribution to the city through our services, is $8 to $9 million per year. We have to keep pushing. Our streetscape and our streets, as the mayor knows, there's many streets where you drive across them and it's like driving across moguls if you're a skier. Many of our sidewalks are in poor shape. And this is all curb appeal for downtown. And it's not just aesthetics. It's essential to safety for people walking downtown, but also to sell downtown. So we'll continue to work with the mayor to drive capital dollars into downtown. I know she recognizes the importance of downtown. Thank you for your comments earlier. But we cannot let it slip for 1 minute. But that's an impressive list of projects. That's thanks to all of you here. Can you please applaud yourselves for what you just saw there? Major, major projects happening nowhere else in the city. Now, I mentioned that we can't let things slip. And I mentioned we talk about safety for a moment. And this is not going to be your standard safety discussion. Last fall was tough mostly because of things that might have happened in the peninsula in South Baltimore, but also we had some incidents in the core downtown. And we recognize that. The city, through the mayor and the commissioner, stepped up and they added more foot patrol. The state stepped up and added patrols at the MTA stops. But the Downtown Partnership, through your private surcharge dollars, did the same. We launched some new initiatives. We brought Wolf Security, a private security firm, into downtown, and we had 16 officers walking through downtown. We still have 12 to 16 officers walking through downtown every single night during an important time period from 2 to 7 p.m. every single day. In addition, we have peace ambassadors. If you recall, there's this project called the Inner Harbor Project, which brought youth into downtown Baltimore and helped them to have jobs, but also to interact with other students to try to just calm down the tensions if ever the tensions were about to arise. That project was about to terminate. We teamed up with the Waterfront Partnership to keep this program going, and these youth ambassadors are out there within downtown as well as at the harbor. We also expanded our homeless outreach team to deal with the challenges in downtown. All that, as the mayor has pointed out, has resulted in crime reduction of 34% year over year. We're going to keep going. We want to make it better and better and better. But we're all in this together. When I said this is going to be a slightly different conversation, I want to talk about what you all can do to help. You've got security in private buildings. Oftentimes I hear from the security that they cannot walk outside your buildings around the perimeter. They can. And you know what? If they say insurance is preventing them from doing that, don't believe it, because we're a private entity and we found insurance. It costs a lot, but we found it. They should get outside the buildings, and many of them do, but not enough are out there. Owners also of buildings should require retail and convenience stores to have their own security. You'd be shocked at how many convenience stores have zero security, but they're calling the police or Downtown Partnership every single day. They need to step up. And then also, I ask you, you are the employers and the property owners in downtown. Try to manage expectations on your own teams. Yes, when crime happens, we need to address it right away. And it's serious. We need to address it right away. But also, there are people who don't fully appreciate what a downtown environment is. Let's face it, sometimes the loudest people in the organizations are those complaining. But just, I want to point out what you could have. You could have a business park. You could have a business park where there's free parking. I know you'd all love that. Where you have free parking and almost 100% security. But you know what you wouldn't have? You wouldn't have all the diversity that drives a downtown. You want great employees, you want talented employees, they're not going to business parks. They're going to downtown areas. They're coming for a diverse community. They're coming for cultural amenities. They're coming for access to a world-class harbor, a mix of historic and modern architecture. And you know what? They're also coming for a real-world experience. That includes, unfortunately, visible proof of mental illness, poverty, and addiction. These things happen. But also, that's why a lot of millennials and you all want to be in this environment. You do not want to be in a business park, and I applaud you for that. But also, there's got to be a balance. And so I urge you, if you do hear some voices that are just complaining about downtown and they don't seem to have a good reason to do so, please challenge them. Please challenge them. This is a fantastic area for you to grow your business and for you to live. And some people try to pull that down. So that's what I'm just asking you today. So please, I urge you to consider that. Now, get to the positive stuff. So, as more evidence of the extraordinary value of downtown, I'm going to quickly review our highlights from last year, very quickly. Our economic development team really kicked into high gear with research and publications. They issued the tech report for downtown, their housing demand study, economic impact study, and then also their neighborhood revitalization work got us focused much more on Howard Street than we've been able to focus on in a long time. The recession really forced us to focus on Calvert Street, Light Street, and Charles Street. We're back to Howard Street. And we are supporting the sales by BDC of their properties, the Baltimore Development Corporation, of their properties. We have to thank the governor for contributing at least $800,000 to improve properties like Lamondo on Howard Street. We have to also thank you all for encouraging artists to be there and for the properties of Park Avenue, 520, 500 Park Avenue. We also support the Bromo Tower Arts District and what they've done with the Charm City Fringe Festival. Let me advance that. You may not even know that the Bromo Tower District exists, but it is a new arts district that is driving artists into the area. We continue to support that with putting on things like the Charm City Fringe Festival. And then even putting up murals. This is at Park and Franklin. It's a new mural that we put up last year in combination with BDC and some of the property owners in the area. But these are the small things we can do to try to transform Howard Street. But good things are coming for Howard Street, and I know the mayor did a walk recently of it, and she recognizes that as well. Capital projects, it was a banner year last year. Is it going? Where do I point? It was a banner year for our capital projects. We have just a few slides to show what happened at McKeldin Plaza and Preston Gardens, but these projects have been worked on by us for 10 years, 10 plus years. You see the transformation of McKeldin Plaza. You're going to see more of it coming soon. Mike, can you advance? Sorry, it's not working. Here you can see the slides of the new McKeldin Plaza. This is a combination of city, state, and private dollars, all in thirds, that led to this transformation of McKeldin Plaza. Preston Gardens is another project that we are so proud to finally reopen this year. The wall at Preston Gardens, which is across from Mercy Hospital, had been moving slightly year after year. We stabilized the wall, we repointed the wall, we worked with DPW, and thanks to their funding, to put in a new water main. And now we have this new transformational park at Preston Gardens. You can see some of the work there. Now you can see where we had a lane for cars. Now, we've reserved it for cars can still go up there, but it's not going to be 2 lanes. But now we've got park space in Upper St. Paul, as well as the improvements to the rest of Preston Gardens. We recognize this is very important for residents and employees alike. Lighting is incredibly important to us, especially with Light City right around the corner. We just appended lights to the arena on the west side of the arena, so it's not so dark as you're walking through there. If you've ever walked along that pathway, you know how dark it can be. We just installed those lights last week. Hopkins Plaza, Linda House on our team has been working on this for years and got these beautiful lights now. You need to check out and walk through Hopkins Plaza at night. These lights move and are very dynamic. Courthouse Plaza, we've got this great new fountain that's working there with lights as well. And Center Plaza, we upgraded the lights. Lighting is critical for aesthetics as well as safety. We're excited we were able to accomplish those things. What's coming up? We've got great news for those of you who drive in downtown, which is probably many of you. You know this little bump out here? This little bump out at Calvert and Pratt in front of the gallery. One day I was just sitting there in traffic and I was wondering, why does that exist? I know the reasons, but it doesn't need to exist there. So we've worked with the city, and hopefully within the next week, we'll get the final approval. And thanks to some city dollars as well as our money, we are taking down that little bump out. So we're going from, see the configuration of Pratt Street? You go from 3 lanes to 2 lanes to 2 lanes to 3 lanes to 4 lanes. This is what's going to happen. It's going to go 3 lanes, 3 lanes, 3 lanes, 4 lanes. So it better work. It better work. We already did the before numbers. We're going to do the after numbers, and I'm very confident that you're going to see some improvements there as well. Also, McKeldin Plaza will see improvements next year thanks to $500,000 from the governor. You're going to see a water feature and some signage. Now, public space maintenance, critical to what we do in downtown Baltimore. You may not fully appreciate it, but these vehicles, these vacuum vehicles, have changed the lives of our employees. They can work year-round in these vehicles, and we just bought these vehicles this year. Plus, we have a new compactor truck there, and we're proud of everything. We're proud of our trucks, too. So that's going around every day collecting garbage. And then youth outreach. As I mentioned, we saved the Peace Ambassador program last year, but youth matter so much to Dr. Perman and me and the board, and we've really engaged and reached out. One of the proudest achievements from last year was connecting public school students to downtown attractions, like we have the Chesapeake Shakespeare Theater and the Reginald Lewis Museum. This is connecting students who would not otherwise be able to get downtown to appreciate the assets in downtown. Then, events and programming. Of course, if you were not part of Lit City, I know Councilman Costello was, I was, Lit City last year in the tunnel outside of Preston Gardens. Oh, it's one of the top parties of the year. It's coming back. We're excited to see that again as well as part of Light City. I think it's April 19th, right, Mike? The Monument Lighting we do every year in combination with many of our partners. And we have recurring plaza events like in Center Plaza, which reach out to kids in the entire city to enjoy our park spaces. And then many of you were at our annual meeting in Center Plaza as well. Thank you for coming to that. And our marketing team also working very, very hard. Our Instagram account was voted #1 by the Baltimore Sun readers as one of the best, as the best Instagram account in the city. Hey Baltimore is continuing to make progress and really change the narrative with regard to just stories of Baltimore and the podcasts that we're able to put out for that every year, several times a year. Also, we support Light City, of course, a critical critical asset and a way to pull people into the city. Last year we did a VIP tent. We won't be able to do that this year because it exhausted our staff because we were there every single night, but we're going to participate. We have our own sculpture going up, light sculpture going up in McKeldin. And then, of course, we were part of the Southwest Magazine big promotion of the city. If you didn't see it this past February, we've got plenty of copies. But millions of people saw these great stories about Baltimore. We helped the author to connect with residents, with employees, and get the great stories that are really authentic about Baltimore out there. Very, very happy with that. Now, we've got a big announcement, and then we're turning over to Marcus Stevens. The mayor and I have been working on something special over the past several months. I have to thank our team for working on it for the last several years. You might have seen out in the hallway this 8-foot-tall, big, it looks like a big iPhone, but it's basically a pedestrian kiosk that is a digital kiosk that is going to be placed in 15 locations in downtown Baltimore, where you'll be able to access it like you access your iPhone to track cultural events, to get information about city services, there'll even be notifications of street closures for people. All these ways to get the message out about what's happening in downtown Baltimore. We talk about promoting the city. This will do two things. It'll promote the city, but also it'll be an attractive amenity on our streetscape. This is called Ike Smart City by Orange Barrel Media. We're excited to have them as partners. Please check out the beautiful kiosk that we have out in the hallway later on today. I want to thank the mayor for your support, the law department, they never get recognized, the law department of the city for their work, the planning department and DOT. But these will be out within the next couple months, but you can see it out in the hallway, but also it'll be at 10 East Lombard for the foreseeable future as well for people to check out. Very excited about our partnership there. And yes? Oh yes, you can take a selfie there yourself and it'll go right back to your phone. The mayor did it. And I haven't done it yet, but I'm not very good at selfies. So please check out that great new Ike machine out there. Very, very excited to launch it. And hopefully after these 15, there'll be another 15 and another 15. Very excited about where that's heading. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce Marcus Stevens. Marcus Stevens is the Chief Brand Officer at Plank Industries and the private investment office, which is the private investment office of Kevin Plank. In this role, Marcus leads the marketing, creative, and brand strategy for Plank Industries, Sagamore Development, Sagamore Spirit, Sagamore Ventures, God, how many of these things? Sagamore Farms, Sagamore Racing, all these transformational projects that you know about in downtown Baltimore. As president of Sagamore Creative, he leads an internal creative team of branding experts, art direction and graphic design, web development, and account management. That's his background, but I have to tell you, I met him last year at an ICSC conference, and I saw how impressive he is, how creative he is. If you don't understand how important the Under Armour brand is to the city, he will tell you, because it totally is. It's not just about Under Armour, it's about the entire city. We're so excited to have him here today to show what he's done. Ladies and gentlemen, Marcus Stevens.
All right, good morning. Thank you so much for having me today, especially Kirby for the kind words. As Kirby said, I am Marcus Stevens. I'm Chief Brand Officer at Plank Industries, and honestly, I'm not sure what I have to add after the great remarks from the mayor, Kirby, and Dr. Perman, but they gave me 20 minutes, the stage, and a mic, so here we go. I'd like to start with one of my most vivid memories from childhood, actually. I grew up in Cumberland, Maryland, Western Maryland, and this memory still anchors my thinking today. When I was about 5 or 6 years old, a certain athletic company out on the West Coast in Portland, we don't mention them by name, dropped a shoe called the Cortez Classic. And this was the 80s, and brands had really figured it out in America, and they had come into their own brands like MTV, McDonald's, even Michael Jackson as a persona had figured it out, and these shoes kind of fit the bill. They were hot. But the phenomenon was that my neighborhood, because of these shoes, turned into the Olympics. And kids suddenly thought they could run faster, jump higher, and were competing all over the neighborhood because of the logo on the shoe. And it was around this time that I realized about myself that, one, I was a pretty decent artist, and because of the results of some of those Olympic trials, that I was a mediocre athlete. And so throughout high school and college and way before Under Armour was even a thought, I sent regular letters and drawings of concepts and campaign ideas to those same guys out on the West Coast. One of my favorite things to do was draw shoes and paint. I use the word paint loosely. If you can consider graffiti art painting, I painted. And I sent them what I still think are some pretty solid concepts today. And to my excitement as a child, they even responded and said that my drawings were cute. To my disappointment, they weren't ready to use any of my ideas. But at that time, I had no idea what the future would hold for me. So. But my artistic talent did make my path pretty clear for me, so I didn't have to do a lot of the soul searching that you see, that I saw my friends do in college and figuring out where their career path was going to lead them. I knew what I was good at and I knew what I wanted, so I studied fine arts and marketing at Frostburg State University. Go Bobcats. Where you at, Ned? All right. And I poured over the work of contemporary graphic designers and agencies like TBWA, Shia Day, Manning, Selvage and Lee, Porter Novelli. They were all pushing the envelope at the time and creating the brands that I loved and I looked up to as a child. Once I graduated school, it was kind of interesting. I started at an agency in Georgetown, and I was quickly working with a lot of the people that I studied, months before. And we did some pretty good work. It was a small firm, and it was constantly having financial problems, as small firms do. And not to mention, I was spending the majority of my time photoshopping reflections out of Nissan Altima windows and making the lettuce on Big Macs pop. So I decided to go out on my own and start an agency with a friend of mine in Bethesda. And so we started an agency, and we were moving fast and managing clients and work. And as I mentioned before, I was still a bit annoyed with my past employers and the problems they had with payroll until I had to make payroll. And then I quickly understood. For the first time, I realized that running a business was difficult and that the leaders of my prior business were actually doing the best they could. But as a young man, I had been frustrated. But one of the first contracts that we went after with this agency was the company out on the West Coast that I mentioned before that made the hot sneakers when I was growing up. And we actually won it. We won a contract with them. And this fulfilled some of my childhood dreams, not all the way, but partially. As for the contract, wasn't for like a new shoe or a campaign concept. It was for a retail management tool. It was for a crisis management tool, actually. It was, we did the glamorous work of creating a handbook that told them what to do just in case a hurricane was to hit one of their outlets. But when this happened, I was ambitious, and we sent out a press release that said, Bethesda firm wins Nike work. And meanwhile, there was a kindred spirit in a 23-year-old entrepreneur named Kevin Plank who happened to see the press release. He tracked us down, and the next day showed up in my office with a box of product in his car, and we started to talk about Under Armour and his vision for the company and the brand. Over the next few weeks, he frequently came to my office, and we did work out on the steps in between my paying clients. Sometimes he would bring a turkey sandwich to, equalize the deal. But it was in one of our first brainstorms that we came up with one of the major tenets of the brand out on the steps: heat gear when it's hot, cold gear when it's cold. And we still use that today. As time passed, Kevin and I continued collaborating. And a few months later, he brought me on as teammate number 4 at Under Armour. And as teammate number 4, one of the first things that I worked on was a redesign of the logo. Because at the time, the logo looked like a sketch of a little, jacked up Atlas man with a little shield, and it was weird. And we had already seen British Knights, and Nightman wasn't going to work. So we went to work trying to figure out what would resonate with the consumer. So we pulled a tiny U and an A that was in the shield, and we started reworking it. We lost the little Jack man, and on the napkin, we started simplifying the U and an A. And we scribbled it down until eventually we got to the simple, clean version of the logo that we have today. In the beginning, the marketing team was just me and a blue iMac because it was the 90s and you needed a blue iMac. And during this time, we created collateral, designed our first and second and third product iterations. We developed television commercials, among other things that it takes to scale a business. And These early television commercials were actually some of my favorite work. They were the most fun that I had, and I would like to take a second to actually show you a recap of some of that early work. Thank you. So beyond just the marketing team, the entire company learned how to be manufacturers and entrepreneurs. Along the way, we made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of lessons. In fact, for the first few years, you could wear an Under Armour shirt forwards or backwards, and it was the same exact shirt. We continued to blindly make little gingerbread man shirts until an industry expert, I think it was one of our manufacturing partners, asked us where the other side of our pattern was, and we were like, Once the in-house brand team was fully functioning, my creative leadership role expanded and changed. I had stints leading footwear and was heavily involved in apparel design, and by the end of my time at Under Armour, I was spending over 150 days a year on the road shooting commercial, making deals, and directing photo shoots. One of the biggest things I learned during this time period is the importance of brand. Some dismiss the word brand as shallow or even trite. But to me, from the first time I saw the confident walk of those kids in my neighborhood in Cumberland, Maryland, I knew it was an important concept. Because brand is your emotional connection to a product, place, or persona. Though brands have tangible elements like logos, color palettes, sounds, brands are composed of intangible elements related to a specific promise, personality, or story or value. It's these abstract elements that include what you feel when you see a particular logo or you hear a certain name, all the positive and negative connotations and associations evoked. The concept of brand is something I take forward through my rest of my chapters and continues to be important to me. In 2010, after a few years at Under Armour, I guess it was about 10 years in now, 12 years in, I decided to take a sabbatical from my work at Under Armour when I found out that my mom had been diagnosed with cancer. I took a 6-month break, and it was an important period in my life because it gave me a chance to spend time with my family and my mom. But the pace of life was considerably different than what I was used to at Under Armour. In part because I had just had back surgery, it also made me far less mobile. And in my downtime, I began to come up with ideas and brainstorm with friends and family. I guess with my recent success in contributing to building a disruptive company and creating a category, I felt that I could have employed a similar formula in another industry ripe for innovation. I was looking for another industry to kind of deploy the same ideas. I ultimately chose the moving industry, observing that the entire process is cumbersome. We've all moved. It's terrible, painful, outdated, and bad for the environment. So I used the money that we had just made off the Under Armour IPO and as seed money and funded a new company to provide reusable crates, eco-friendly packaging, and transportation services to companies and individuals that were moving. I wanted to call the company Reeboks. Makes sense? I'm a brander. But I asked my counsel if they thought I was in jeopardy of infringement from the shoe company Reebok, and they told me that if I even said that again, that I'd probably get sued by the shoe company. So I named it Repacks. We manufactured crates, we bought some trucks, we created a logistics system, launched a website, and we started taking orders. We started in the DC, Baltimore area, and we were eventually operational in New York, Boston, Orange County, Los Angeles. We had, actually, let me just show you what we did. Here we go.
Repacks is a smarter way to move. We bring our crates, you pack your stuff. Our crates are cheaper and stronger than cardboard.
Just do it right, make it perfect and real.
And because they're reusable, it's good for the environment.
Because it's everything, though everything was never the deal.
Crates come to you. When you're done, we pick them up.
So grab your things and stumble into the night.
Life's a journey, and moving should be fun. Repacks. Move smart.
So, thank you again. So we grew to 40 employees in 8 locations with respectable revenue on the top line, absolutely no revenue on the bottom line. But we wanted to go national. We wanted to expand to Middle America. So in order to do so, I needed to raise some capital. So I reached out to Kevin Plank, who I still spoke to often on a professional and personal level. I could see in my mind's eye at this point in time, Kevin and I's paths had crossed with some sponsorships. I could see that he was pretty impressed with the momentum that I had with my company. And in my mind's eye, I could see that Kevin was ready to make a significant investment in Repacks. So we set up a meeting, and he even invited me to a Jay-Z concert, which I thought was a celebration of the deal to come. I did. So we went to the concert, and on Monday, came to his office, and I brought my pitch deck, and I never could have expected what happened next, as he completely turned the tables on me. He started pitching me on his dreams for investing in Baltimore and creating jobs. His ideas included a number of companies he wanted to invest in, and none of them were named Repacks. But he did offer me a role at his new company he was forming, which was part family office and part dream machine, called KDP Investments, and it's now known as Plank Industries. After our meeting, I drove from back heading to the Repacks offices in Columbia, and my head was spinning thinking about all the things that he had just presented to me. It wasn't until I realized that I drove right past my office and was getting on 495 that I called Kevin and was like, all right, buddy, you win. So I got started searching for somebody to run Repacks and started with Tom and the team at KDP the following week. So after the wild ride on the front lines, growing Under Armour and starting a disruptive company of my own, I felt that I had developed the skills in high-level management, strategy, and creative direction to be prepared as executive creative director of Plank Industries, or KDP at the time. But it was the early days of the company, and there were still only a handful of teammates, so my skills weren't quite as deployable as I had anticipated. In fact, Tom Geddes, in the early days, CEO of Plank Industries, Tom, hello, said to me, he said, Marcus, I'm going to do my best Tom voice. He's like, Marcus, I know you're excited to contribute to these projects, and it's going to happen, I promise. But I have this speech next week, and I need some help with the presentation. So I spent the next few months as the PowerPoint guy, doing presentations for the team. And I don't regret it. It was a great learning experience. After eating that slice of humble pie, I eventually did grow into my role as Chief Brand Officer, determining strategy, connecting dots, storytelling, and creating brands that can scale. Along with my all-star team, I get to work every day to develop the brands that tell the stories of a number of entities, including Sagamore Spirit, Sagamore Farm, the Pendry Hotel, and City Garage, to name a few. But one of the biggest opportunities and exciting challenges of this job has been creating the marketing strategy and messaging for Port Covington. My team has been responsible for developing a pitch for national and international equity investors. We secured an amazing, I said Amazon, I skipped to the next part, sorry. I'm still PTSD'd from that. We secured an amazing partner in Goldman Sachs Urban Investment Group, an impact investment business unit within Goldman Sachs that makes investments and loans that benefit underserved urban communities in the U.S. They're a great partner. They were just here this week for a great visit. But my team also spent the entirety of September working with many other stakeholders, some of who I can see in the room here today, to create a bid for the Amazon HQ2 in Port Covington. And although we weren't ultimately successful, we're grateful for the unique opportunity we had to bring a diverse coalition of people together around the table, and with the leadership of our mayor, create a solid economic development plan that will be employed over the coming months and years to attract business to Baltimore. It was a great honor to have the responsibility of leading that effort, and it was truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Thank you. But I've worked in Baltimore for 15 years, and I feel a deep connection to this city. It's been one of the privileges of my personal and professional life to be able to work on projects that can help change the trajectory of our city. And we're seeing it right now. We're seeing it right now in South Baltimore with the SB7 Community Coalition as they work in partnership with the Port Covington Development Team to execute on the promises of the Community Benefits Agreement. So what does the future hold for me and Plank Industries? It holds a major investment in Port Covington and the increasing growth of Sagamore Spirit. We're going to continue to edit, focus, and simplify while bringing new investors to keep the rising tide right here in Baltimore. Within and outside of my work at Plank Industries, I'm doing things I never would have imagined when I was a youngster. When I was daydreaming about shoes that give people superpowers, suddenly my days are filled with keynote speeches, board meetings at MICA and the Maryland Department of Commerce. I certainly didn't imagine being here when I was 10 years old, spray painting old broken down train cars, or even 23 years old, eating turkey sandwiches and pretending to know how to launch a sports apparel company. But I'm glad I'm here. Because this is an exciting time in Baltimore. We're creating positive momentum. Great things are happening in downtown, and we can see it every day. From the revitalization of Harbor East to the great work of Visit Baltimore, especially with their hashtag MyBeMore campaign, of which I'm a big fan. And both within and outside downtown, enterprise and developers are revitalizing historic landmarks and vacant buildings like our house, the Ivy Hotel, the Sagamore Pendry, into beautiful places that people can enjoy. The mayor is leading the charge on a number of specific initiatives, but more so than anything, being a top-notch spokesperson for a city on the rise. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And of course, what brings us here today, the Downtown Partnership, working hard to improve the core of this city with their diverse initiatives. And also organizing events like this one today that prove to be critical connective tissue, creating the collisions that make things happen in our city. As I wrap up, I'd like to return to a concept that I mentioned throughout my remarks, and that's the idea of brand. As I said before, a brand is an emotional connection to a product, place, or persona. It is derived from stories which are intricately intertwined with the public's perception and consistently provides the audience with a secure sense that they know what to expect. Most of us here inside Baltimore have a particular set of emotional reactions and connections to this city. We feel a pride in our city, a camaraderie with the others living and working here, and a conviction that things are getting better. But outside of Baltimore, the emotional connection to our city looks a bit different, and we all know it. As many of you know, when you talk to your friends and your family around and your relatives around the country, often external reaction is that of skepticism, doubt, and sometimes even humor. There's a major dissonance between the internal and external reaction, and it's our job to bridge that gap. I don't suggest that this place isn't complicated or that our city doesn't have its challenges, all right? That type of approach would be misguided. I am still an optimist because from years of experience, I know that for a brand to survive, it must reflect reality. And the external brand of Baltimore right now does not encompass the whole reality. It does not always include the people and organizations working tirelessly to make things better, Organizations like Bet on Baltimore, the Center for Urban Families, Port Covington Manufacturing Bootcamp, Bridges Baltimore, Thread, Build and Turnaround Tuesdays, YouthWorks, Baltimore Ceasefire, Light City, Humanim, Green and Healthy Homes, and countless others that would take too long to list. These initiatives have small and big victories every day. These pockets of work can create a wave of momentum we need for change in Baltimore. We still have a long way to go and a lot of work to do. And for some, it's easy to become disheartened. But to quote our former president, and one of my favorite people, Barack Obama, change only happens, couldn't resist, when ordinary people get involved, get engaged, and come together to demand it. That wasn't very good, but I had to try it. That's why my team and I work with some of these organizations on the ground, doing the work to shine a light on what they're doing. It is important for other people to see victories we do have, and the majority of people here who have hope for our city. In order to scale an expansion of perception, we must evolve the brand of Baltimore to illuminate more of the truth. And it's happening. 10 years ago, headlines about Baltimore included recaps of past night's episodes of The Wire and discussions of the issues of crime, drug trade, and poverty in our education system. Now the actors in The Wire are helping children break the cycle of crime and developing real estate in this city. Today's news about Baltimore includes a spotlight in travel and leisure entitled How Baltimore Quietly Became the Coolest City on the East Coast, a 24-page spread in Southwest Magazine called Baltimore, the City You're Missing, a place on the New York Times global list of 52 places to visit in 2018. In the 10 years that have passed, the reality and the narrative of the city continues to change right before my eyes. It makes me proud to do the work we do and the work that many of us in this room are doing every day. We're working to change the emotional reaction that other people have when they hear the word Baltimore, because a strong Baltimore brand makes our businesses stronger, which makes our economy stronger, which creates a better life for our citizens. The brand of Baltimore is a critical part of our future, and I and my team look forward to helping you shape it together. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you for accepting our invitation to speak. You did a fantastic job. And Marcus and Tom, keep pushing, keep charging forward for our city. Thank you. Now, I'd like to conclude by thanking again Mayor Catherine Pugh, the members of the City Council, Dr. Perman, and our board members. I'd like to thank the Hyatt. I'd like to thank all of our vice presidents of the Downtown Partnership, the people who worked on the report and program, Davon Barbour, Mike Evans, Megan Eisenach, Claudia Freeland-Jolin, Will Dorfman, people who worked on the breakfast, Shannon Brown, Emily Brighter, Courtney Drake, Linda House, Lauren Hamilton, Marissa Moss. And finally, I want to recognize our sponsors once again. Presenting sponsor, Gallagher, Avelius & Jones. Thank you again. Leadership sponsors, COPT, Ike Smart City. Community sponsors, Baltimore Development Corporation, First National Bank, Horseshoe Casino, PMS Parking, 225 North Calvert, Marks Thomas Mosley Architects. I want to remind you your reports are at your seats. They're also online. And thank you very much for coming.